When people think about UAP or UFOs or whatever you want to call them, most people say they're from another star system. Some advanced civilization that figured out interstellar travel and decided to come back and check us out. That's the default assumption. That's the story we've been telling ourselves since Roswell. But what if that assumption is wrong? Not slightly wrong, but fundamentally wrong. What if they're not coming from out there at all? What if they've been here the whole time, living on this planet underneath us, in the oceans, in the places we never looked, watching everything we've built without us even knowing they were ever there? In 2024, researchers from Harvard University published a peer-reviewed paper making exactly that argument. And when I started following the path of these papers and all this other evidence, it became harder and harder to dismiss. The paper is called the Cryptoterrestrial Hypothesis, published in the peer-reviewed journal Philosophy and Cosmology in 2024, written by Tim Lomas and Brendan Case from Harvard University and Michael Paul Masters from Montana Technological University. The core argument is straightforward, even if the implications are not. UAP may not be extraterrestrial. They may reflect the activities of intelligent beings concealed here on Earth, underground, underwater, on the moon, or possibly, and this is the part that gets me, walking among us. That last part is a direct quote from the paper, by the way, not my words, Harvard's. Now here's what makes me take this seriously beyond just the institution that's behind it. Lou Elizondo ran the Pentagon's classified UAP program, the man who's actually seen the files. He promoted the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis publicly in a 2025 documentary. Not extraterrestrial, crypto-terrestrial. And David Grusch, the Pentagon whistleblower who testified before Congress under oath, never once used the word extraterrestrial or alien. The word he kept using was non-human intelligence. And when he got pushed further, he described something indigenous, something that was already here. Now usually, people in those positions don't use words accidentally. They use precise language. They choose their words carefully. And when the people who have seen these files keep steering away from the word alien and towards words like indigenous and resident and non-human, that tells me something. The Harvard paper doesn't just say that something's hidden here. It lays out 4 specific hypotheses for what that something might be. And I'm going to walk through all 4 because each one hits a little bit different. The first is an ancient human civilization, a technologically advanced human culture that existed before recorded history. Something catastrophic happened. We talked about the Younger Dryas, where a comet impact 12,800 years ago reset civilization globally. And instead of going extinct, they went underground, went remote, kept developing in isolation while the rest of humanity started from scratch. They've been here the whole time, just not where we've been looking. The second is an evolved non-human species, something that developed intelligence on this planet independently from us, not from space, but native to Earth. Just taking a completely different evolutionary path and remaining hidden by choice or by necessity. The third one is my favorite because it's time travelers, our own descendants coming back. The craft aren't from another world, they're from another time on this world. Michael Paul Masters at Montana Tech has written extensively about this, the implication being that UAP activity isn't contact with aliens, it's contact with ourselves from further down the road. And the fourth, what the ancient world called angels, demons, the jinn, the fae. Not supernatural in the way we usually mean the word. Earth-based and indigenous, just operating at a level of technological and cognitive development so far beyond ours that the gap looks supernatural from where we're standing. Now, any one of those is more unsettling than aliens from another star system, because if any of them is true, they've been watching us build everything we call civilization the whole time. But not from a distance, from right here. Now here's where the paper gets specific, and it's a lot of stuff that we've covered on this channel over the last 6 or 7 videos. The ocean argument is the one that hits hardest for me personally. We've mapped less of the ocean floor than the surface of Mars. Less. The ocean covers 71% of this planet. Average depth over 12,000 feet. We've explored roughly 5% of it. If you were an advanced civilization trying to stay hidden on Earth, the ocean is a good hiding place. It's almost the perfect one. And here's the detail that connects that to the UAP files. Transmedium vehicles. Craft that move seamlessly between air and water with no loss of speed or structural integrity. This is one of the most consistently documented characteristics of classified military UAP encounters. Not landing on a runway, not hovering in the sky, entering the ocean and exiting the ocean, moving between those environments like they're the same thing. We covered the Pentagon files a few weeks back, and that same behavior, UAP going in and out of the water, shows up repeatedly in the declassified footage. The government has been watching this happen, and they've obviously been documenting it, and nobody has a satisfying explanation for any of it. And then there's the underground evidence. Ancient tunnel systems found globally. Underground structures whose origins we can't fully account for. We did an entire video on Derinkuyu, which is an underground city in Turkey that was carved for 20,000 people. Multiple levels deep, with ventilation systems that still work and rolling stone doors that could seal every level from the inside. I spent the whole video asking why someone builds something that elaborate underground. The crypto-terrestrial hypothesis offers a different answer than the one I had at the time. And then there's this, a 2026 paper in academic literature, building on the Harvard study, introduced something called the red line hypothesis. The proposal that certain UAP behavior represents calibrated responses by crypto-terrestrial intelligence to human activities that breach established boundaries, specifically nuclear weaponization, deep ocean intrusion, military space expansion, the same areas where UAP activity consistently concentrates. We didn't stumble into their territory, we kept expanding into it and building on top of it. I need to tell you about Mac Tonnies. He coined the word crypto-terrestrial in the early 2000s, long before Harvard touched it. His book, The Crypto-Terrestrials, a meditation of indigenous humanoids and the aliens among us, is still the most complete treatment of this idea ever written. He spent years building the argument that apparent alien visitors weren't visitors at all, they were indigenous, that they've been here longer than us and had very specific reasons for staying hidden. He finished this manuscript in 2009, the same year he passed away. He was found in his sleep at 34 years old, and no cause was ever determined. The book was published, and then he was gone. Now, I'm not implying anything sinister here. People die young. It does happen. It's a tragedy. But a 34-year-old man spent the last years of his life building the most compelling case ever assembled for the idea that something intelligent and non-human has been sharing this planet with us since before recorded history. He finished it, and then he was gone. And 15 years later, Harvard researchers cited his work extensively in a peer-reviewed paper. There are a few details about this hypothesis that I find hard to move past. The nuclear connections keep showing up. We talked about the Sputnik a few weeks ago, where peer-reviewed research photographed objects in orbit before any satellites existed. And those objects had correlations with nuclear weapons tests. They were 45% more likely to appear within 1 day of a nuclear test. And that research was published in Nature. The red line hypothesis I mentioned earlier specifically identifies nuclear activity as one of the primary triggers for UAP response behavior. Not curiosity, response, as in something noticed and then reacted. That's a very different thing than casual observation. And then there's this. Congressman Mike Gallagher during congressional UAP hearings specifically noted that one potential explanation for UAP is an ancient civilization that's just been here. He said that in a congressional hearing, not on a podcast, at an official government hearing on UAP. And the Harvard paper includes this, possibly the strangest line in the entire document. The researchers suggested that crypto-terrestrials might not just be underground or underwater. They might be, in their own words, walking among us, passing as humans. And those authors are Harvard researchers that put that in a peer-reviewed paper and stood behind it. I don't know what to do with that detail, honestly, but I'm not just going to pretend that it's not there. Now I want to tell you where I land on all this stuff. Not where the evidence points as an abstract exercise, but where I personally land after months of covering this stuff. I think the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis has some pretty good framework for everything this channel has been looking at. Not because I have proof, nobody does. But here's the thing about the extraterrestrial hypothesis. The distances are almost incomprehensibly vast. The energy required for interstellar travel is almost incomprehensibly large. And the behavior we document, the frequency of encounters, the apparent interest in specific human activities, the psychological effects on witnesses, none of them fits the profile of explorers making a long journey from somewhere else. It fits the profile of something that's already here. Skinwalker Ranch is an example. The government scientists who studied it concluded the phenomenon has been there for a very long time, not visiting, but it was resident. In the Book of Enoch, the Watchers were contained, not destroyed. They didn't leave, they just went somewhere. Vale's control system, something that has been managing human consciousness across all of recorded history from a position we can't fully perceive or access. Every thread this channel's pulled over the last 6 or 7 videos keeps landing in the same place. Not out there, but here, on this planet. Something older than us that has been present for the entirety of human history and has its own reasons which we don't fully understand for staying hidden. The ocean is 71% of this planet and we've seen 5% of it. We've explored more of the moon than the deep sea floor. Whatever's down there, we haven't found it yet, and maybe that's by design. Now I want to be straight with you before we wrap this up. The crypto-terrestrial hypothesis is not proven. The Harvard paper describes itself as a speculative thought piece encouraging scientific openness. That's what it is. Speculative from credentialed researchers that deserve serious consideration, not a conclusion. But here's what I keep coming around to. The government's own people keep steering away from the word extraterrestrial. The peer-reviewed literature is expanding. The UAP files show transmedium craft. The ocean is almost entirely unexplored. And a Harvard paper says that we should genuinely consider that something has been concealed on this planet, possibly walking among us the entire time. Those aren't my words, those are Harvard's. So do you think there's anything to this crypto-terrestrial hypothesis? That aliens are not aliens at all, they're just indigenous creatures that have been here the whole time? Maybe a separate species from us, maybe an ancient human civilization that went underground and hid. Who really knows? Somebody has the answer. As always, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate you watching and hanging out with me for a little bit. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so, drop that comment and hit that like button. Until next time, I'll talk to you later.